And hello, everyone. We are starting now. Oh my God. It feels like I haven't done this forever, but at least definitely a week. Welcome to today's live stream event, as always, at a time that no one has expected. It was unexpected for me as well. I thought I would not be having the time to do anything today. Yet, lo and behold, here I am to talk about things that are mattering to Ukraine, as the channel name suggests. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to welcome you all that are present here and are going to be coming along. We're going to have a relatively short stream, just like an hour, hour and a half. I want to dedicate it mostly to answering some of your questions because a lot of people have been really reaching out over the emails over the last week because there's been a lot of things and I didn't have a lot of time to make a lot of videos. So let's talk about your questions. I'm going to answer that. Obviously, we're going to touch the primary topic of this video as discussed, but we start, as always, by me asking you to appreciate the work of the people that do not appear on the camera, and it is the moderating team. Without the moderating team, we would not have our good community, and especially in the last couple of days, the troll avalanche was enormous. There was a lot of overtime work, both for me and for the moderators, to try to keep our comments nice and tidy. Russians definitely don't spare any money for the propaganda efforts as of right now because they're feeling that they can get something. We're not going to let them. So please join me and give a hand to the moderating team. Thank you so much, guys, for everything that you do. Now, we are also today going to be talking about other things and so on, but I want to start with the Neptune. Now, if you haven't heard, oh, wrong transition, sorry. I should have transitioned to this one instead. So if you haven't heard about this thing is Ukrainian Neptune missile. Now, for a while now, it's been expected when Ukraine is going to finally unveil their long-range missile, because work on it has been ongoing for a while now. And this is important. Why? Because people might ask, but Ukraine has already long-range drones. They can strike like 1,400 kilometers. And the obvious answer is a little bit after the thought, which is drones are relatively slow. They're slow-moving targets. Missiles are still missiles. So Ukraine has literally just basically developed and now put in full production their own homemade 1,000 kilometers cruise missile. incredible work, and Russia already felt the consequences. Some of their oil refining facility or oil storage facility, I don't remember which one it was, around Tuapse in Krasnodar, has already felt this impact. There has been reports that potentially some of the previous impacts that we've seen on the oil production facilities in Russia should have been attributed to the Neptune, but there was no confirmation. But finally, we have the confirmation. So this changes things. We need to understand that when Russia started attacking Ukraine, well, obviously we are now day, 1,000 something, over like way 1,000 days into this war, and it was supposed to be a 3-day special military operation, and nothing in Russia was supposed to get hurt. And while Russians are more or less trying to kind of deal with Ukrainian drone assaults because, well, they are drones, while they're numerous, they also have their drawbacks. They're quite easy to shut down. Now, Ukraine has also shown that they have their own home production of cruise missiles, which is great, which is amazing. And especially this is important to the amazing parts that when we're talking about the potential for Ukraine to scale the production of equipment. We talked extensively about the fact that Ukraine, if they want to substitute any kind of help that's coming from the USA, that they would need to boost their own home production. And I explained specifically that while in Europe we have the money, we don't have a lot of the weapons production facilities. So there we are. This is just another example of where potentially additional funds allocated to this production can increase significantly ability of Ukraine to produce their homemade cruise missiles. This is great, and like the difference between this or HIMARS and ATACMS, firstly, obviously, it's a longer range. But most importantly, this is a homebrew missile for Ukraine. This is their own defense sector. So there's not going to be any man in the middle that's going to say, no, you cannot strike this. Which obviously means only one very specific thing for anyone in Moscow. Because Moscow is very much in range of this. If you know what I'm getting at. The point is, Putin should not feel safe. Putin should not feel complacent. And Russia should not think that anything is over, because nothing is. We hear right now a lot, and we're going to probably touch on some of your questions. I don't want to speculate too long, that while there is a lot of discussion about the future of the peace talks and so on, I feel that we can now very firmly agree with what I've been saying before the peace talks and peace proposals came out on the table, is that we're nowhere near any kind of agreement, okay? There is seemingly no reasonable ceasefire plan on the table that would be accepted by Russia. So Russia doesn't accept it because they think that everything is nice and good and they're winning so hard, so much winning for them. Unfortunately for them, it's not going well, and it's not going to be going well even further now with the Neptune missile being in the pockets of Ukraine to strike all those vital targets that they couldn't reach beforehand. All right, let's jump into the questions. Before we jump into the questions, someone mentioned that there was Nick from In Time show, and it was like kind of depressing. Guys, can you write me in the question section that like what was there with Nick, and maybe I can tackle some of the things that Nick was saying. And if it was depressing for you, maybe I can explain from my perspective and how I see it, okay? So if you've seen that, please write it in the comment section and so on. So let's start with a comment. Johan Lundberg says, Georgie, my man, what happened now with US not renewing Russian general license of energy? What are the implications? The implications are not very severe. There has been zero impact, pretty much non-existent impact on the Russians. The point is that a lot of people and a lot of the Russian companies have already operated knowing that this thing might happen. And the main part is that this impacts only the transactions that are made either in US banks or US controlled banks or with the dollar currency. So if, for example, Russia is trading through Chinese banks in yuan, then those implications are pretty much non-existent. And we definitely know that majority of the Russian transactions are happening in those kind of schemes. They don't really involve dollar almost at all. So this does nothing, basically. I hope that explains. It's a nice measure 3 years ago. Like 3 years ago, this would be much more impactful than it is now. So the situation changed, and right now it's okay, whatever. Like, it's not bad, but it's like, okay. Dilhovanik, Haya, how are things going along the front line at the moment? It's varied. Right now, overall, we can say that Ukraine was able to stabilize their situation in the east. I think the most important is not actually the front lines itself, because front lines right now are moving, but there is no immediate disaster brewing, if you know what I mean. So Russia is not really advancing on any direction in a tempo and power that could be very, very threatening. Ukrainians have their positions pretty much secure right now. There is no right now what despite the fact what the Donald Trump tells you about the encirclement, there is no encirclement, but potentially we can cover that. So there is, like, right now a lot of room for Ukrainians to maneuver. They're still being in defense, so they're continuing with their operations to exhaust the Russians. And with regards to ways that Ukraine is counterattacking, it's been quite good. They counterattacked around the Toretsk axis. They counterattacked around Pokrovsk axis quite successfully. They're also pushing the Russians back a little bit around the northern side, around Kupiansk, where Russians crossed the river and made a bridgehead on the Ukrainian side of the river. So overall, Ukrainians have been stabilizing front line, and Russia has been mostly exhausted. Right now, kind of the biggest question about the front line is where the 50,000 troops, including some 10-15,000 Korean troops, are going to go after Ukrainians will leave Kursk completely. And the biggest change, what I wanted to say, is not specifically on the front line. It is what's happening a little bit beyond the front line, specifically in Ukrainian command. Majority of the fuck-ups that Ukraine had during the last year when they lost territory significantly was because of the issues within Ukrainian military. And there have been significant changes within Ukrainian military, and those changes are finally starting to pay off. We also hear that Ukraine is finally transitioned to the core system. So we are looking into very important transformation that is ongoing within Ukrainian military, and first results of that transformation are in, and those results are good. The command, some of the soldiers on the front line are saying that the command structures have been improved, and the actions that Ukrainian forces are performing make a lot more sense compared to what it was before. So the situation is difficult. Ukraine is still in a defensive stature, but it is controlled in a sense that Ukrainians are making the right moves towards improving their issues, towards solving the issues that they had beforehand. Can you pronounce Macron? Yeah, no, I cannot pronounce. Not in a French way. Not in a French way. Impasse, Georgie, hi. Have you heard the idea of returning Statue of Liberty back? Okay, that's bullshit. That's not a real question. Not interested. Jeffrey, wouldn't be in better place now if we would have supported Ukraine all out when the war started? I feel like we have seriously chosen the long and wrong road to approach this war. Yes, Jeffrey, you're hitting the nail of the head. Like, you're hitting the whole point why this channel is still running, is because we had the easiest solution of our lifetime to just let Ukraine win, but because the Biden's administration decided to instead drown Putin and his economy in the blood of Ukrainians, we got ourselves like a long conflict that is just nowhere seen how it could end right now, because right now US is not deciding to help Ukraine, or maybe deciding to help Ukraine. It's unclear. So I think the agreement that Joe Biden and Olaf Scholz made with this strategy was a complete disaster, but expecting that they will own up to this is pretty much impossible. Most likely they are tapping themselves on the shoulders and are rubbing in like how good of a negotiators and how good politicians, leaders they are, that they prevented the nuclear war or some shit like that. So, but you're absolutely right. Another J. Will Ukraine be broken apart and split up between Hungary, Poland, Russia in the next 10 years, or is it more like 20? No, another J. I think you're full of shit. Ukraine will not be broke up. Let's talk about Russia breaking up or Hungary breaking up. You are full of shit, and I don't care about those kind of propositions, because those are like Russian propaganda talking points and they have no basis in reality. Ukrainians have shown that they are much stronger than pretty much anything. Like, just look at US. Russia was able to conquer and break US before it was able to conquer and break Ukraine. So, no. Another Scott, AFU rules, thank you so much, but please keep the question section for questions. Appreciate it. Canada, hello. All I got surprised with a response on an email by someone higher up in our government recently. My question, is this the first of many new missiles or other technologies? Yes, so I know for a fact that there is a lot of technologies being worked on by Ukraine. Ukraine is trying to really innovate on the battlefield. There is a lot of pressure inside of Ukraine. Let me see what I can talk about. Like, because I don't want to. This is the unfortunate part. Like, oh my God, how can I say? I will try to tell it, guys, but without telling too much, because so things happened, and I was able to get some information that usually I would not want to get. Like, I don't like getting like secret or like some classified information, because I like to talk with you the way that the public sees the things, you know, to mostly deal with and so on. And because of I know some of this insides, I know certain things are being worked on, not super top secret things. Like, we're not talking about like the highest level. I'm still just a YouTuber, right? But there are certain organizational barriers, and this is not a big secret. Like, I think everyone can understand that there's certain organizational barriers that needs to be taken care of in order to get the advancements that Ukraine wants ahead of Russians. So let's leave it with that. Like, I really don't want to touch on this. You're gonna understand everything relatively soon, so don't worry. This is just like a timing manner that, like, oh my God, Georgie's hiding something, what an asshole. It's like, yeah, don't worry. You're gonna get to it very soon. Morocco, will Russian special agent Krasnov betray Ukraine and give all concessions to Putin? Like, I have to even ask? Yeah, you don't have to ask. Again, Trump is not really a player anymore, right? And I want you guys all to understand this. Trump is a big dick, right? Like, he is just trying to cause trouble for everyone. He's an issue for Europeans because of the tariffs. He's an issue for his own neighbors. He's an issue for a lot of part of the US society itself. He's an issue to America because he's making America small again. He is literally destroying any kind of world order, Pax Americana that we had. Like, right now, he's basically burying it ASAP. He's speed running the whole thing. So he's an issue in that sense. However, I already explained that it's a fallacy to think that Ukraine is fighting because US is supporting them. No. Ukraine fights because Ukraine fights, and US support is benefiting Ukrainian fight. So the fact that Trump wants something, or he's going to agree something with Putin, or he's like wants that or wants this or something else, it does not matter, right? Okay? He, like, as soon as he said, like, I'm not going to be supplying weapons and equipment to Ukraine, he's basically excluded himself from the equation. Now, Ukrainian diplomacy did a great job. They were able to butter him up a little bit, like really, like, you know, moisture up that orange asshole of his, and get him to spit out additional help. But do not take that for the fact that Ukraine is kind of giving in suddenly to any kind of Trump's demands. No. Ukrainians still very much know what they want and so on. They are just getting their time to and getting what they can from the Trump's administration thanks to diplomacy. They are not going to be giving up shit. No, I mean, he's a big dick, not in a sense that he has a big dick. I mean, he is a big dick. Like you know, he's a big jerk. Let's go with this one. Because otherwise, like, we're going to stuck in dick discussions over here. And we want to be productive before the stream ends. All right. What can a Neptune missile do to the Kerch Bridge? Quite a lot, but there are nuances. Because to get to Kerch Bridge, takes a certain amount of time. And Kerch Bridge is a massive bridge, so Neptune missile can damage it, but it's still, it's still not enough. And right now, Kerch Bridge is very far down the line of the priority targets that Ukraine has, right? So we're right now, like, the moment when Kerch Bridge was essential to take down has passed, and now we learned that it was the allies, the great, amazing Ukrainian allies that said, like, no, 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 don't explode the bridge, please, anything. Ooh. One of those attacks were supposed to be done by was prevented specifically by Elon Musk, if you remember. Like, it was the one when he turned on the Starlink navigation. What is going to take for the EU to indefinitely suspend Hungarian voting rights? Everything Hungary has done until now has crossed any European red lines. Where is the red line? That's a good question. So there is no dedicated European red line. I truly believe that unless Germany gets invaded, or Poland gets invaded at least, I don't really feel that Europe will ever fully understand that we are in deep shit. Like, just today, we had, for example, the Dutch, or not today, but like in recent couple of days, we had the Dutch parliament vote to say no to the European Union defense spending bill because they're afraid of debt. It's like, so we are truly ultra fucked in Europe. Like, we live in such a fantasy world where nothing bad happens. It's even hard to imagine. So there's a lot of still ways for us to kind of go wrong. So I don't think we're gonna fully awaken. Like, I still think that we are still very much sitting behind a lot of red tape, and everyone is just having their shaking hands, afraid to cut it. So right now I really don't appreciate just how much room we have given the Trump administration in Europe. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a good thing that our politicians did to try to work with Trump's administration and kind of support with the peace plan and so on. But I think there needs to be also more effort been in communicating to our own citizens just how much mobilization of European assets we need right now, and that communication is not happening. Instead, from majority of the European leaders right now, for the last week, we have been hearing only that we are super ready for the peace deal when that is going to be coming any day now. And I am not completely sure what exactly they mean. So, as always, any good beginnings in Europe gets instantly struck by the absolute disgust of reality, of absolute inability of our politicians to actually put their money where their mouth is. What is going to take for okay, sorry, David is asking, how can the Ukrainian medical fields hospitals, what? How can we get Ukraine medical field hospitals? Not really sure what you mean. Do you mean supplies? Those are going every day in. I don't know. I don't understand the questions. Like, Ukraine has a chain network of field hospitals. They have like a full setup network. Ukraine is fighting a war for 3 years. They have that shit figured out. They need supplies. They need resources for the medical operations. But that doesn't mean that they need like some dedicated field hospitals. It wasn't me. Yeah, my former question refers to the newest live stream of Nick from the Time Channel. Yes. What is it that Nick asked from the Time Channel? I understand that Nick said something on the Time Channel, but what did he say? Like, what did he say? It's like, Jesus Christ. It's like when I said, like, guys, write me what did Nick in a Time Channel said. You don't need to write. It's like, yes, I said something about Nick the Time. That's so funny. Mitch Ashdown. Nick's show was the Trump stuff. Okay. Venezuelan being deported, the prison of El Salvador, and ignoring judges and such, not Ukraine. Okay, no, that doesn't matter. Like, as I said, like, for me, Trump is a non-entity by this point, right? We can talk about, like, the things that are covering Ukraine, but what Trump is doing in the United States and so on, not that it's not important. but it's like it's not something that influences the things that matter for me as well. Okay, there are other, especially the American, because one thing that I want my American viewers here to understand is like Trump is your problem first and foremost. Okay, like it's you need to solve this. And most importantly is I want you to realize that he's a problem for you first and foremost. The fact that right now at the receiving end of Trump's administration are us as well, the Europeans, that we're getting the tariffs and so on, and understandably, we understand that. We understand that. But Trump is your president, so it is for you to deal with. Like, I tried doing my part when was the elections, but it was useless. So Trump, as a matter like of his influence in Ukraine matters, is relatively low-ish. The help from United States is still important. That's why there is still some discussions with his team. There is still some trying to buttering him up and trying to get some kind of goodwill from the United States. But that's about it. Like all of the people and all of the politicians in Europe that are still trying to pretend that we can live in some kind of a good relationships and that US can still provide the security guarantees for us in Europe, those people still live in delusions. And I don't know how to tackle. Like, I don't know how to tackle those politicians, and I don't know how to tackle people that still believe those delusions, like people from Italy stating, it was like, oh, but we are so far from Russia, why should we worry about our defense spending? It's impossible. So we are way beyond that. We are way beyond that. We are now in a situation where literally, if Europe doesn't do it, no one does it. Then everything is just ultra fucked. Then any kind of world order that we lived in, any kind of like no, it's like even peace dividend, everything is done. Right now we're talking about even just protecting democracy. In US, that's internal problem. In Europe right now, this is external problem. In Europe, we're now having external problem. And problem is that about a third of European Union just is freaking asleep, that they are still not realizing the shit we're in. And I'm talking even more probably about the normie population. For normie population, this is even worse because they think that's like, oh, well, it's like spending for defense. I'm not sure if this is necessary or not. Our politicians still cannot realize just how big, deep hole we are in. And that it is, if we're not doing it now, then that's it. Then there is no more democracy. Then we get into the era of the non-democratic regimes. Then we get the weird situation where we will not get into any kind of democratic prosperity, and slowly but surely we're just going to have our democracy suppressed because democracies cannot exist when autocracies are actively attacking it. Democracies cannot adapt to it. Right now we have the power, but we're not using that power. We're just sitting there and watching Russia just attack us nonstop every day in propaganda field, in information field, in actual economic fields and so on. And we're just like taking it on the chin and just not doing anything because, oh, it's taking so long and we have so much red tape. It's really sad. It's really sad that this is the time that I live in. And that we don't have people that are ready to stand up to this. Well, we do. Mette Frederiksen, for example, from Denmark, she understood the mission. Some other people understood the mission. But we still look behind our shoulders and like, well, but will US support us or not? Because without US, I don't know if we can. And my hopes are really much on Germany. Because if Friedrich Merz really follows up the actions, the ones that he's saying, together with Poland, together with the Nordic Baltic 8, I believe at least we're going to have a strong core, the coalition of the willing, that can defend us from Russia, that can literally save everyone. But we are like literally one step away from disaster. Do I know Anna from Ukraine? Yes, we interacted. Hello, Georgie. Any news on the first Taurus into Ukraine? I think that Merz, as soon as he takes office, he said that he will allow Taurus going to Ukraine. Thomas says, the Russians are about to attack Sumy if North Koreans are also deployed. Is this the red line for the Western countries? What will happen? We are past all of the deadlines, Thomas. No more deadlines. Like, guys, deadlines means that there is some kind of world order. Like, the order is gone. There is no more order. There is no more deadlines. Everyone understands that we are, like, where we are. It's just the European states, they don't want to acknowledge that they are in a state basically of war. They are still preparing, and like, I'm part of Europe as well, I should say we. So we in Europe are still preparing for the next war. So we are like preparing, like, okay, we need to prepare our defenses, we need to get our production, and we need to do everything. And we're kind of preparing for the next war, when the next kind of like attack is going to come towards us. Whereas in reality, we are already fighting one. So what we should have been doing is like, okay, how can we do something to let Ukraine win? Instead, we're discussing still like how do we go about like when Russia attacks next time? You see my frustration. It's not a hard concept to understand. Like, because European Union has the resources to win this war. We have that. But instead of acknowledging and making some kind of victory plan for Ukraine, how Ukraine to win, we're starting to draft as like, okay, we're gonna protect this part of Ukraine when there is a peace agreement. So when the Russia comes next time, then maybe we will be ready, and so on and so on and so on. We are literally just closing our eyes and pretending that it's not happening. It's insanity. What about Belarus after the meeting in Crimea? Are they into something fishy? Is Belarus into something fishy? I'm sorry, what? Is Belarus into... Belarus is a puppet state of Russia. What do you mean, something fishy? Ukraine was attacked from the territory of Belarus. Planes bombed Ukraine from the territory of Belarus. Russia deployed nuclear missiles in Belarus. What do you fucking mean, something fishy? Are we fucking five here? Is Belarus about something fishy? It's like they only been like allowing Russia to attack and basically facilitate the invasion of a European state over the last couple of years. It's like, what are they up to? I don't know. Maybe they're playing cards. Who the fuck know? I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Well, maybe it sounds fishy. Maybe they're up to, while Belarus, like, launching missiles, allowing, it's like training, making weapons for Russians, sending their stockpiles to Russia of their weapons and so on. Sounds fishy. It's like maybe they're up to something. Jesus fucking Christ. Isbliss. If OPSEC allows Isbliss says, if OPSEC allows, any chance Ukraine is designing their own artillery rockets? Perhaps with the EU partner that just coincidentally got HIMARS M270 systems. There is work that is going in this direction. However, you need to understand that the paradigm that Ukraine has adopted. Ukraine has adopted a very important change of concepts for their weapons design. The weapons designed for Ukraine is price per kill. How much does it cost to kill one Russian? So the problem of the artillery, the M270, HIMARS, and so on, it's a precise weapon, a highly precise and highly sophisticated weapon. There goes a lot of resources to make that weapon. While I truly believe that Ukraine can make a weapon that can work, the development cost plus the production costs potentially will be outweighed by maybe 10 different other projects that Ukraine can be presented. Most likely drone projects, because drone projects have been like all the rage. Beyond that, as far as I know, there is in general in European a know-how how to produce these missiles. So right now, I believe it falls on the European allies to produce these missiles. Lobo Raider 75, did Ukraine ever get those Abrams tanks from Australia? I believe so. I think we've followed up on this. I believe they were delivered, but I cannot say for sure. Isbliss says, light-hearted questions here. Any name suggestions for a country if there... Any name suggestions for a country if we here in America can keep our freedom? Okay. Frakis Maximus, do you think Denmark entertaining the Greenland independence movement is triggering the USA nonsense? I don't understand how Greenland with just 56,000 could be viable independent country. So you need to understand Denmark a little bit here. Why in Denmark independence is, and allowing the independence of Greenland is such a big thing. So without diving into the history of the country, Denmark has had a very good history of changes of power. More importantly, when we're talking about both the monarchy and the changes of lands. For example, there has been part of Denmark that went to Germany because people that lived on that part of Denmark, they voted to remain in Germany, while some parts voted to be in Denmark, so they stayed in Denmark. Then there has been the changes of the crown power. The power of the crown was not handed over to people violently, like in a lot of other monarchies. It was actually peaceful transition of power. It was a peaceful, well, not without pressure, but still peaceful transition. The crown allowed essentially people to take the power in the land. So there is a rich tradition of allowing those sort of independence and soft transitioning of power. Greenland, while being part of the Danish kingdom, since there was a lot of discussion whether or not Denmark really controls Greenland or not, and there has been some naughty things that Danes did to Greenland, to say the least. Like, I don't want to go into full colonial past, but like some of them were not pretty. So since then, it kind of is understood that Greenland is staying part of Denmark mostly just because of their goodwill, because of the goodwill of the people of Greenland. So if they don't want that goodwill, then just by the nature and history of the Danish state and the people inside Denmark, we do not really see that we, quote unquote, own them. So that's why I truly believe that if Greenland will decide to be autonomous, not autonomous, but independent, they can do that. And if they're independent, they can decide to join US or not join US. It is up to people of Greenland. And I believe that. I think whether it's viable or not, state with 56,000, I don't think that's a valid question to ask. Because we're talking about a specific people, self-actualization, self-realization, and I support that. So I don't think the question is like how viable that state should be standing in the way of them making that decision. If that turns out to be erroneous and they will find that it's impossible to run the state, they are free to rejoin Denmark, rejoin the European Union, join the fucking Russians if they wish so. But it is up to the people of Denmark, not for us here, sorry, not Denmark, but Greenland, not for people of Denmark to dictate to people of Greenland what they should and shouldn't do. I truly believe that they're capable to understand the complex topics of their independence. Sorry. Chris Angel says, do you know how quickly Germany can build up their production lines if German defense companies start using existing auto factories? Yes, and I actually have a meme for that. So pretty fast. we were talking about factories, and we've seen examples of Rheinmetall opening some factories inside Ukraine, and we see that average factory opening cycle is about a year and a half. So if there is money, if there is a will, there is a very quick way to open this. And here is the meme, by the way. There we go. There is a meme. So someone wrote to Porsche customer support with a question, and just to kind of say. But yes, if there is really a need, I believe Germany can scale up within a year and a half, 2 years, and onwards. So we could relatively fast see significant output. But we also need to understand that we have been investing into some of the factories already. So there's already going to be some output increase over the coming years. Mr. Bakaruni, I'm new to this channel. What nationality is the host? Well, welcome to the channel. And I am Latvian from the Baltics, Latvia. And but I have been living in Denmark for my last 11 years. I was born in Soviet Union, though. Joey H., do you think Ukraine will ultimately develop their own nuclear shield given the difficulties getting their Article 5 guarantee? Oh, I think yes. And I think a lot more countries will develop their nuclear capabilities in the coming years. Scott Hitterman, Trump's behavior has united people in Canada away from the far right. Is this something you can see in the countries of the EU? Yes, very much so. Very, very, very much so. Not necessarily against the right, because the European political structures are a lot more like fluid. Definitely parties that were supporting Trump have gotten a lot of their popularity suppressed since then. But majority of the far-right parties in Europe are mostly driven by the internal politics, specifically questions like migration and green policy. Those are kind of like the two big ones that are driving a lot of the politics inside of Europe, inside of EU at least. But I'm pretty sure inside of Great Britain as well. To Devmir Korkmaz, will Zelensky go back to White House? Yeah, of course. Why not? Last visit of Zelensky to White House was super favorable for him. He got a lot of points. So the optics were so bad for Trump because it was so obvious that it was a setup that Zelensky got a lot of benefits from his visit. I read that Ukraine has produced its first 1,000 drones with Chinese components, without Chinese components. Are there really no Chinese parts in them? What about GPUs, receivers, chips, motors, cameras? So the biggest roadblock, and like this is something for you, it's like, so the biggest roadblock and the biggest problem for getting components is magnets. So to get fully off the chart, like everything can be produced, but there are two roadblocks. One, Chinese components are extremely, extremely expensive. Second, the magnets. It's very hard to get non-Chinese produced magnets that are reasonably priced. Is Ukraine capable of striking Uralvagonzavod big factory? I don't think so. I think like some of the drones can maybe somewhat reach it, but the factory of Uralvagonzavod is huge. Like it's not like a one building factory. We're talking about like semi-city scale wide, the factory. Uralvagonzavod area. Let me see if I can find area. Area size maybe. So Uralvagonzavod is employing, what is it like? Yeah, something around 30,000 people. Yeah, I cannot find the information about the total area of Uralvagonzavod. But basically, what you need to understand that it's not like one missile can just fly in, strike a building, and boom, the factory is not working. No, it's like it's a size of a city, like maybe like a town, maybe a small town. So that factory is pretty big, pretty big. So it's not like one or two drones can significantly impact it. It's not like an oil refinery where there is like a couple of really valuable points in that oil refinery structure, like for example the distillation tower, and that is like if you strike the distillation tower, well, congrats, you just like struck most important parts of the factory. Okay, let's answer some of the super chats here. Robert H. Ukraine is the new world leader. Hell yeah, agree, my friend. Richard Bennett, thank you so much for 5 gifted memberships. I appreciate it. H. Savrit, thank you so much for 24.99 Canadian dollars. I appreciate it. Nathaniel Campbell, thank you so much for 20 bucks. Gold, yes, thank you. Captain Copenhagen, go to Sierra. Oh my god. I'm mixing Danish and English. Go Sierra. Oh my god. No, better not try to. Go to Strema, Creeper to Greenland. Yeah, yes. Thank you so much. Captain Copenhagen. H. Sorry, Georges, what Ukrainian Easter eggs Pisanki do you see Ukraine delivering to the Russian next month? Hopefully, they will be delivered with Neptune missiles. Matt's Weird World, do you think Willy Ohm is pro-Russian? I believe Willy Ohm has been pro-Russian for a while now. Amy K, has the USA started back sending aid to Ukraine? Yes. Tommy Niskanen, gifted 10 Ukraine memberships. Thank you so much. Tongue Gymnastics 4G. Oh my god, like I haven't spoken Danish in a while now. I really need to get back to speaking Danish. I need to get like some classes or something. Like I have a paper that technically says I can speak Danish, but my Danish is like hi. That's the level of Danish that I've been speaking lately. I really need to get back into regular conversations in Danish. Yeah, for helvede. Yes, exactly. Yeah, for helvede. Yes. Yeah. I know you can talk with me, but like the most important is finding time, you know. Yeah, roggen med fløde, it's okay. Not super tasty though. Like it was one of the first things that I've learned about, but yeah, it wasn't super tasty. It sounds worse than it sounds about the same way it tastes, to be honest. Is Bliss, in all seriousness, when Russia falls, what organization will be in charge of denuclearization? Obviously, the expected US can't be. Okay. US can be trusted, allowed to that role. I think it's a bit prematurely to say. We don't know how this war is going to end. By this point, there are many endings where Russia stays as it is, and not the fact that they're going to be denuclearized, because we don't see that there is a drive for denuclearization. We passed that moment. So we already fucked up our non-nuclear world. We already done that. Like that part, we already are past that. Matt Fogel, production expectation for long-range Neptune? Well, I don't know, but if I would know, I wouldn't tell you. Michael Rizzuti, do you think strengthening the sanctions will have any effect on Putin? Yes. Viet Nguyen, Odessa, how is its defense? Putin wants it before any ceasefire. Putin wants everything. Like, it doesn't matter what he wants. Chris Angel, do you think Europe isn't awake enough to rearm and invest in their defenses over the next coming years? I think they are. What I think is they're not, is that they're investing, like they're preparing for a war that's going to be happening in like 5 to 10 years from now, instead of focusing well, how can we do things now as fast as possible because we need them yesterday? Different approaches. Carl Jensen, is it possible Trump and Putin already have a deal and all the rest is smoke and mirrors? It's possible, but I mean, like, it's there might not be like a deal, you know, there's might not be a deal on the table, but there is like, you know, Putin saying, oh, we want like parts of Ukraine. And then Trump says, well, it's like, okay, you can have parts of Ukraine. And then they want to convince Ukraine that Ukraine needs to give parts of Ukraine. So it's like Putin likes, Trump likes Putin, right? So he wants to just get Putin everything that he wants so Putin can fuck off and get Putin essentially away from China. But that is the stupidest play in a playbook because it completely ignores the agency of Ukraine. And that's basically where Trump's plan of giving Putin everything that he wants just fails. And now he's struggling to go forward. He's feeling paralyzed because he sees no way forward. He finally suddenly realizes that's like, oh shit, I cannot just allow Putin to take everything because Ukraine is not giving him shit. That's the only thing that is happening right now. Nothing else. US is not advocating for the benefits of Ukraine. Nothing, not a single word that came out of any single Trump administration representative has been in favor of Ukraine. Not a single action that any representative of the Trump administration did has been in favor of Ukraine. Not a single action or word. Everything was at max neutral. Even if we're talking about Ukraine getting the things that from the United States, like weapons or intelligence, all of those things were paid for, requested, and agreed upon by the previous administration. Trump is not doing shit to help Ukraine. It wasn't me. I have been referring to the fact that basically the U.S. Congress just gave up the right to rein in the president. Yeah, I mean that's Trump's playbook. Have you not read Project 2025? Read Project 2025. I read Project 2025. It's a fascinating read. You can use the Project 2025 book as a checklist and just go through it. Do you think Trump is a Russian KGB asset? So Jason Meza, if you think that it's like the distinguishment between that Trump is a Russian asset, then I think yes. But we need to distinguish between the Russian asset and the Russian agent. I still don't have the full confirmation that Trump is a Russian agent, but he's 100%, 1000% a Russian asset. Matthias, so the US can remotely shut off software in Kit they've sold. Can we talk about this? I mean, not much to talk. It's another part of the Trump making America small again. Like, that's the whole point when I'm stating that Trump is sabotaging the United States. Because they could have had that power. They could have had that power. And they could have leveraged having that power. They could have, use that power at a moment when they could receive major benefits. But instead, they used this power right now in Ukraine with little to no benefits to anyone. So they shut down some of those electronic warfare devices on the Ukrainian F-16s. The F-16s that are not even been donated by the United States, mind you. They were donated by the countries that are war in alliance with the United States. So that was like, imagine if you have, like, how would I say? How do I even put an example for this? Imagine that you have a lucky rabbit's paw, and that thing can do like anything for you, like anything, and make you millionaire. It can make you create like a full island full of blonde hot chicks or guys or whatever. It can create like a future prosperity for your whole family. It can remove cancer from the world, make everyone healthy. And you're like there sitting is like, yeah. But you know what I want right now? I want my shoes polished. That's the level. That's the level. The monkey paw. Yes, thank you so much. Rabbit foot, monkey paw. I always mix them apart. It's like, That's the level of difference that we're talking about. The ability of United States to control the weapons that they're selling, incredible. Could have been like strategically monumental, something that could change the scale and efforts in any conflict in the world going forward. But instead, Trump just a temper tantrum about Ukraine and Zelensky not being nice to him, and deals like and gets all these cards away. And now everyone is like suddenly, wait. So you can turn off our weapons, and you didn't even think twice. You didn't really even warn Ukraine about turning off weapons. You just like instantly turn them off. Well, we should really reconsider our F-35 deals then, and a lot of other weapons that we're using from United States. And he's literally sabotaging the US defense industry. Like, if I would be at the US the weapons producer, I would start pulling my hair out. Insane. Jason Meza, do you think the Ukrainian forces will keep some parts of the Kursk region? No, I don't think so. I think Kursk region has served its purpose, and by this moment, like, there is very, very pretty bad position for Ukrainians to hold. They still hold some of the high ground, but Russians do still have control of some of the deliveries. And while the logistic shoulder is relatively small, so Ukrainians can kind of walk around the Russian targeting, it's still not a super nice position to be in. So I feel that at some point they will fall back to the Ukrainian territory. Nelson Sheckler, do you believe Trump gave Ukraine positions in the Kursk to Putin, intending to bring him to peace talks? No. This is like too much of a 4D chess arguments. I don't feel that Trump and his administration are that smart. They haven't shown and demonstrated one time that they are this smart. They have been pretty transparent just how idiotic they are. Zokimon, how does Russian cock taste like? Ask President Trump. Shutter Marker, what do you think is the strategy behind Mark Rutte on Trump? Perhaps doing anything he can to ensure the US won't leave NATO during the current distinguished administration. Yeah, Mark Rutte is basically, like, what you need to understand, that Mark Rutte is the Secretary General of NATO, right? And he understands pretty well that if there is no cohesion between the alliance members, between United States and so on, then there is no NATO. And Mark Rutte wants a lot of things, but firstly, right now, he wants not to be the last Secretary General of NATO. So he is trying to kind of work around, trying to find some kind of way to talk around Trump and so on, even like when Trump, to his face, stating that US should potentially invade another NATO member. NATO is a joke by this point, and Mark Rutte realizes this. He just wants to preserve some kind of decorum if things potentially maybe are gonna go maybe a more productive direction in the future. No, he understands. Right now, Mark Rutte is pretty obsolete as a figure. Crazy. What about Denmark F-35s? Will they also consider canceling the contract? I think so. I think there will be immense discussions. I haven't followed a lot of the Danish news lately. I should probably read up into this, but I'm pretty sure there are already politicians that are asking about this. Robert H., what you do with people who are so much anti-immigration in the EU that they forget to realize Russia is causing it all by conflict they're creating? Wait. What do you do with people who are so much anti-immigration in the EU that they forget to realize Russia is causing it by all the conflict they're creating in Africa? I think it doesn't matter what Russia is doing in Africa, right? What matters is what we are doing, or more specifically, not doing. Migration issue has shown itself to be extremely divisive in Europe. And it's clear that migration there's been we've been too lax in Europe towards the immigrants. Not because it's a right thing to do, not because we need to get like no migrants into Europe at all. No, but the level and social perception of the problem has risen and has been escalated by a far right parties and far left parties, actually, to that matter as well. That is now an actual issue. So because it's now becoming an issue, it needs to be treated as an actual issue rather than just stating, no, 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 we are rich enough, we can do whatever migration is going to be thrown our way. No, 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 we need to tackle, if a thing is really creating issue for us Europeans, it needs to be tackled. You cannot just close your eyes and pretend that things are fine and not tackle it. And it's not about saying that we should or shouldn't leave people in or out of EU. It's very clear that it's an issue. And just people not tackling it gives power to the far right parties. And I'm not sure how long it can be taken. I mean, I live in Denmark. Denmark's message to migrants is like, don't come here. Like when Europe had a lot of the migration issues, Denmark's message was, do not come here. Up to right now, Denmark is still one of the most, if not the most hostile country in European Union to immigrate into. So, because it was an issue, this is where Denmark ended up. Because we had lax migration, people came in. Since then, we had stricter migration. I feel that this might be like either, waves. We could have more restriction on migration, less restriction on migration. Because I'm full for people coming into Europe, but I think we need to take into account that first and foremost, the citizens of Europe need to be acceptable to immigrants. If immigrants just arrive into the hostile countries, it's not going to be a good time for them as well. Yeah, I do believe, Morocco, that by this point, European Union needs more restriction on migration. Not because immigration in itself is bad, but because it is now a social problem that is creating a window of opportunity for radical parties to arise. We do not need that. One second. Oh. Oh, sorry. Just again. Let me see. Do NATO countries like Germany, France, and Poland need Trump's permission to declare a no-fly zone in Ukraine if they decide their own to do it? No, they don't, because we've seen that it's all about someone taking action and then everyone else kind of falls in line. There has been not a single action that has been taken that was like, oh, why did you take that action? Well, now you're going to face the consequences? And then there is no consequences or something. So no, everyone's what they're saying is we don't want to cross the line of our neighbors or friends or whatever. It's just an excuse. Every country could do everything. It's morally right to send in our fighters, our planes to protect Ukrainian skies, to protect civilians from any Russian attacks. It's morally correct, but it's not being done because reasons. And then people come up with excuses. Michael Hernandez, will Europe give Ukraine the weapons it needs to defeat Russia or just enough not to lose? Well, we have been giving so far enough not to lose, but we have a bit of a change of pace right now, so we'll see how it's going to go from now on. But most importantly is that Ukrainian production has been rising up. So that is the most important one to keep in mind, that Ukrainians have been building up a lot of their own home production. And a lot of the narratives, and this is important, guys, by the way, that most important narrative that came out with that Donald Trump meeting and Zelensky's meeting that kind of made a shift in Ukrainian society is we cannot trust our partners. That's it. like it was kind of like generally perceived, but it wasn't, like a paradigm shifting perceived. After that disastrous meeting with the setup of Trump just attacking Zelensky and then behind the back dealings with Russia, there has been a significant paradigm shift inside of Ukraine. And it feels that there is an understanding that if we want to win, we first and foremost need to be strong ourselves, need to understand our own power and what we're doing. And allies are not relevant, but like they cannot be trusted. They still look very favorably to Europe, but also like they're like, but what if not? What if Europe goes away tomorrow? So unreliable, yeah. So that's why there has been like a significant shift in Ukrainian society as well with the recent events, and that thing we need to never disregard. Do you think there will be a ceasefire? Maybe at some point, not right now. Gino Bohes, can you tell me why the EU still withhold the 300 billion euros? Because they are cucks. They want to suck on that rich, big dictatorship money. So they're like majority of these billions are located in countries that are living off of corruption. They're living off of corrupt regimes while pretending that they are the most saint countries in the world, preserving like that and stating that Ukraine is so corrupt. Oh my God, whatever. No, the reality is that there is a lot of the tax haven countries either in Europe or around Europe, and they are just kind of taking the dirty Russian money and not really choking on it. And when they said like, well, you need to go give it back because it's morally right, they said like, we don't give a shit. We don't give a shit. This has been like our operating model. We made a lot of money this way. We were able to launder the money and earn a lot on this. So we're going to continue doing this. What you going to do? And then the governments and any kind of organizations do nothing about this. They just show their deep concern and says that Ukraine needs to fight harder and mobilize more men. That's it. That's the solution of the problem. That's the reality that we're living in. That's the non-corrupt European countries that we're talking about of that are having this 300 billion Russian money. What is your education? I have a master's in economics and business administration with a focus on information management. Tuvok Shador, where can I get your hat and hopefully make a donation at the same time? You mean the Kraken hat? Well, this one is probably going to be, you need to reach out to the Kraken unit because they're the one that's distributing it. Maybe I will be able to get those hats at some point, but I don't know yet. Let me look into this. But I would love to make like unit hats as well. We'll see. Benito says, some people haven't got the knowledge, you have settled down. We are all on the same side. Benito, is this your first time on my stream? It's like, so guys, I am a I have very low tolerance for stupidity. That's why I cannot be a politician or anything. And when someone is asking my stupid question, I'm considering the stupid topic, not the stupid person behind it. Sorry, that came out bad. I mean, it's okay to ask stupid questions, and I'm going to be reacting to them like stupid questions. But it doesn't mean that the person that asked the stupid question was a stupid person. And the fact that I'm antagonizing about half of the population that is watching me, I know that. That's why my channel is so small. Because I am just myself. I am who I am. There are people that like me, and there are people that absolutely despise me, hate my fucking guts. They say I'm the most despicable person in the world. And it's true. I am an asshole. The only thing is, some people are like, maybe sometimes they feel that they need to listen to an asshole that when they hear a stupid question, treats it like a stupid question and tackles it like a stupid question instead of trying to massage it and make it socially acceptable, stuff like that. It's like I can't. I can't, like, because as soon as I try massaging the stupidity, I get really, really annoyed. And I'm sorry if I annoy you. I'm sorry if I insult you that way. But that's who I am. Anyway, moving on. Alex Bozo, UK and France are not in the willing block for you. What do you expect them to do more? Okay, let me understand this question. Oh, we talked about stupid question. Let's go. I think this one is going to be another one. Let's say. So most likely the person that asked this question is either from UK or France, and like at least what I'm seeing is that he is asking whether or not like they're doing enough, and like why don't I say thank you? Probably that's what he expects, is that I should be just sucking the cock of Starmer and Macron just for the things that he's doing already. And the thing is that Europe is my continent. Europe and all of the countries in Europe, I am deeply passionate for. I am pro-European. I want Europe to be strong. What I want Putin to not consider like in the ways that he can dismantle Europe, not how he thinks like while sitting at his whatever cabinet, like fiddling his strippers. He's thinking about like how I can dismantle more in Europe, or how can I fuck up with some of their politicians and their political systems. I want for him to sit there in his fucking fear and piss his pants because he even thinks for a second, allows himself to think that he can mess with any kind of parts of Europe. I want dictators across the world to be terrified of even considering that they can start coming in and teaching and even potentially thinking of saying a word about how we in Europe we should be running our countries, and trying to dictate to us where we should have troops, where we shouldn't have troops, where we should have power, where we shouldn't have power, instead of fiddling in our elections, instead of doing this. I want Europe to be strong. The solution to that is very simple. Arm Ukraine now. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. And my frustration is that instead of tackling this problem, instead of addressing the problem of let's deal with Putin one time and for all, so every single other dictator understands that you do not fuck with Europe, instead, we are discussing like some kind of half measure of maybe increasing or non-increasing our defense spending for 1%, whether or not we should be considering additional help for Ukraine. And we're still calling it fucking help when it's actually a fight for our own survival and survival for our democracies. We are considering whether additional half percent in defense spending is good enough, or otherwise we're not going to have enough the budget for flowers in our cities, for lighting up electric trees for our Christmases. That is what makes me frustrating. So when you come in and say, it's like, well, we are doing so much already, why can't you just say thanks? I don't understand what you're talking about, because we are not addressing the main problem. We are doing drip feeding Ukraine with breadcrumbs from our table. And honestly, it's really showing, because we are so much richer than Russia. We're like, if you put charts about GDP of us, GDP of Russia, even if you just like don't put that, if you put charts about our defense spending inside of Europe, defense spending in Russia, you get the same thing. And instead of us saying is like, well, why don't you agree with like Starmer and Macron and so on, they're fiddling around instead of addressing the problem. That's my problem. That is what I'm stating, because we are treating Ukraine like it doesn't matter. Like, if we just massage it, then Ukraine will just give away some territories and will go away. And it's not good enough for me. For me, what matters is that Putin, Xi Jinping, whoever else, mumbo jumbo, like North Korean dictator, whatever, would ever for a second consider that he can fuck with Europe, that he starts sweating in fear. Tuvok Shador, where can I get your hat and hopefully make a donation? Yeah, I will figure it out. Garth Mackenzie, hey Georgie, will Ukraine accept the offer of feet on the ground assistance offered by Australia, New Zealand, and Japan? Cheers, Aussie Bogdan. Bogan, sorry. Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, Ukraine has asked for help starting day one. Close the skies. That was the first question that asked. Because, like, Ukraine understood that no one is going to send their troops because everyone is so fucking afraid of Russia, considering my previous point that I just said. It's like, day one should have been forces sent to fucking Ukraine saying, it's like, what is that moron thinks this doing? Trying to make a land war. Didn't we say never again? We're gonna go and explain him like what we meant never fucking again. And instead we're like, oh, we should consider like maybe additional weapon supplies. Should we send these vehicles from the 80s right now, or should we not send these vehicles from the 80s right now? You know, these missiles that should Ukraine use these missiles that are a little bit longer range than the previous ones, or shouldn't they send these missiles? Should we give Ukraine tanks, or should we not give Ukraine tanks? The fuck you're talking about? It's like, of course, send everything. Devrim Korkmaz, isn't it better to focus on fiber optic drones in case Starlink is closed? Okay, I'm gonna tackle this question. So with the drones, you need to understand the current challenges on the front line. Starlink is needed mostly when we're talking about the bigger drones, for example, like a naval drones that are surface drones that are going to strike Crimea and so on, or maybe like a bigger hub drones that are deploying a lot of the smaller drones. Optic drones are drones that are being used in heavily electronic warfare situations. So if there is a front line and defensive positions on the front line, there is electronic warfare, then usually the optical drones are being used to strike targets inside of these electronic warfare situations. These drones try to strike electronic warfare stations, the stations that are covering certain frequencies for the normal drones to fly. And a lot of the pilots, they're hating flying these optical wire-guided drones because optical wire-guided drone is just a regular drone that has a big spool, like a 30-kilometer spool attached to it. And basically, it drives like a cow on ice. It's very, very bad. So the pilots really hate flying these optical drones. So what they hope for the best is to use them to take out the electronic warfare stations and then use the normal FPV drones to operate in the area that has been de-electronically warfarized, if I can say so. And then they use this. But none of that is dependent on Starlink. Starlink mostly used on the communications, like, for example, you communicating to your neighbor. Majority of communications for Ukrainian armed forces, we're talking on tactical level, like unit to unit, like to your immediate surroundings, are happening actually in WhatsApp or Signal, one or the other. It's that simple, because a lot of these internet communication solutions have been proven to be much more stable and workable than anything that military has been inventing so far. So that's why Starlink is important, because internet. And if there is no Starlink internet, well, then there's the question. And then we're talking about, well, if there is no Starlink, what then? Well, then we go into different solutions like Wi-Fi networks. We're talking about Ukraine using just like regular old LAN cables that are just being put around in kilometers over the land in Ukraine. Remember, Ukraine still has some infrastructure, and there are things that are happening with Ukrainian infrastructure. And putting cables in the ground has not been completely disabled. It's still possible for Ukraine to connect to internet by using cables. That's why Starlink is important. But I truly believe that Ukrainians understand that if it's going to be shut off, then they need to have some kind of secondary solution. Mike Doucette, do you get the how to get the countries to understand that we already in World War III? Democratic countries need to switch their budgets to wartime economies. That is the challenge, Mike. And there is already an answer happening, right? We already, like, when we're talking about getting our defense spending to 5%, that is the right way to go. But like, I think that's like, if you want like a room temperature gradient, so you should consider like 5% or above. That is the state that realized that we right now are in a state of essentially war by this point. For now, not a hot war, but at least a cold war, for sure. And if a state just says that by 2032, we're going to improve our defense spending to, I don't know, 2.5%, that state still hasn't realized just where we are. It's not enough. If there is still discussions about, well, we cannot increase our defense spending because it's going to hurt our social programs, that means that state still hasn't understood where we are. And it all starts with the messaging to population. The politicians need to start addressing the politicians need to start addressing the population and start explaining to them and raising the expectations that we are now in a period of war. The peace dividend is over. And the end of the peace dividend comes with a price tag. And that price tag is pretty much 5% until Russia is put back in its place. If we want to consider peace dividend, if we want increase in our social spending, we need to make sure that we show Russia the door, and so it never comes back to Europe. Merbro, thank you so much for 10 euros. Thanks for a great content. Absolutely, my friend. Thanks so much. Vive la France. Russell Lamders, what is your future plans? What is your thoughts on future plans for Ukraine? Well, to continue fighting the war. Because for Ukraine, there is no ceasefire coming. It's all bullshit. It's all just for show. We've seen this finally. I hope finally, like, everyone agrees with me that Putin doesn't want peace. Like, is there anyone that is still doesn't want to realize this? So for Ukraine, fight until they win. That's the only way forward. They don't really have any other option. So with or without the help of the allies, like, it's impossible odds, right? It's a question whether or not they can win. But the same was said like for Vietnam, the same was said for Afghanistan and so on. And those countries were even almost fully occupied by the aggressor. And Russia is nowhere near occupying Ukraine. They're still not even close. So Ukraine will continue resisting. They will continue falling back because they don't have the resources to fully fight the Russians. Their output is still lower than the Russians, but they have been doing an incredible job. They've taken out the park of vehicles of the Soviet Union, the world's second superpower that over 50 years has been accumulating weapons and vehicles and ammunition to fight the rest of the fucking world. And Putin has expended it all in 3 years. 3 years it took Ukraine to take out over 50 years of legacy of the world's superpower. And people then just say, it's like, whoa, Ukraine is losing so hard. And it's like, whoa, it's like, yeah, have you even a slither of understanding what happened and how just incredibly Ukraine crushed the Russian offense? So it's not done yet. 2025 is going to be hard for Russians, but it's not the end date. We'll see what's going to happen mid-2026. That's going to be like, for me, like, if you would ask me, and now I'm imagining question, right? If you would ask me, Georgie, what do you think would be the point at which it would be important to assess whether or not Ukraine can continue fighting the war? I would say mid-2026. Because right now, as I said, Russia is slowly but surely running out of their last stockpiles. So they're going to be fully working on whatever their production can output. By the end of 2025, we should be already seeing the effects of this. And the end of 2026 will show us whether or not Russia will be able to adapt to the new reality where they cannot just fight like they have infinite stockpiles of everything, where they would need to fight smarter. And that's when the moment we're going to see whether or not Ukraine will be able to then slowly turn the tides of war. And I truly believe that Ukraine will, because I do know that the technological inputs into Ukraine are incredibly powerful. And Russia has been running basically on the money that they had in a piggy bank, but Ukraine has been running basically on debt so far. And while the European Union can continue still supporting Ukraine financially, it doesn't require us to have any more production. If Ukraine was still going to be supported by European Union by the middle of 2026, I truly believe that Ukraine has a incredible opportunity to just completely crush Russians. All right, let's read up a couple of last questions. I've raged up today. I promise that it's going to be a relatively short stream, and there's been already enough yelling for today. So let's go back. Like, what do we start with? Like something about dicks? Let's return some kind of dicky questions. Yeah, some people in US being really mad at me. Very nice. Good. It's good. All of you Trumpers should be really fucking mad because like you are so smart and I'm so dumb. Well, except it's your economy that's going down right now. Came back to a Kraken patch and a backpack. Yeah. I'm looking for any good question. There's like, I guess like my rage about the Americans and Trump's like really triggered some people. Holy shit. Do you ever think Ukraine will take Crimea? It's possible, Sandwich. This is what I said, like with the 2026, right? Because until mid 2026, I'm expecting Ukraine to continue losing ground. Mostly because Ukraine has been having great success in their defensive operations. I do believe that we might see some more dedicated counterattacks, something like we've seen in Kursk, but potentially more towards the Ukrainian area. I don't know which one, but we'll see. So can they retake Crimea? Yes, but the way to Crimea is pretty hard. Like pretty hard by this point. Валерій Кор, Георгію, дякую за правду та підтримку України. Багато хто не розуміє жахів окупації, Буча, Ірпінь, Ізюм. Ти не здаєшся і лишаєшся трезвим голосом. Це безцінна. Слава Україні. Героям слава, Валерій. Thank you so much, Valerie. Yeah, I'm really trying to keep like Valerie basically said that thank you from a Ukrainian that we continue supporting. But it's not me. Like I'm just a guy on YouTube. I'm just yelling here. The main work is, and like whatever we're doing is done by this great community, the people that are watching me, the people that despite me just being like a yelling guy that just spouts nonsense and insults about a third of his viewerships, they still keeping up, understanding that I might be an asshole, but I'm an asshole for a good cause because I want Ukraine to win, and we will do everything that we can to make sure Ukraine wins. And I think this is a great message for us to end the stream on. Guys, trust in Ukrainian armed forces. We have more surprises, very nasty surprises coming from the Russians from this channel and this community. Stay tuned. I love you. Slava Ukraini. And I will see you next time.